This episode is brought to you by May Precision Ag in Kiowa, Kansas. Be sure to contact Jerry May for all your Pioneer seed, grid soil sampling, and custom farming needs. Michael Simpson, welcome to the podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Justin?
Good. Hey, so we're old friends, or I say we're old friends.
You're older than me.
Well, touche. For those that may not know you, take a little time, tell them who you are, where you come from, all that stuff.
Sure. So like you said, I'm Michael Simpson, and I've grown up in Barber County my whole life, most of that on the southern part of Barber County. And my family here in Kiowa, I grew up either in the hardware store helping out there or the welding shop doing ag repair. And then that moved into crane work and working in the oil field. And so that was most of my growing up. And right now I actually get the privilege to serve out at a ministry called Freedom Gates Boys Ranch, to where over in the thriving metropolis of Hazelton, Kansas, where we have double, or almost not quite doubled the population, but we're climbing that direction. And
close.
It doesn't take much, but it always impresses people more. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're like 30% of the town. And so I just don't tell them exactly how big the town is. So, but no, we get to work with kids from hard places out there, and they get to come out to Hazelton and, become a part of a nice, safe community there and learn and grow and heal from hurts and so on. And so I've been, this next spring will be 15 years since me and another gentleman kind of started putting that together. The guy that really started it was Dennis Blake out of Medicine Lodge area and then Greensburg. But he's kind of since stepped out a bit. Here about 6.5 years ago, I stepped in and took that over full time.
Yeah. So that was Dennis's vision.
Yes.
And you came along shortly thereafter, though, right?
Yeah. He had, the way he explains it, the Lord kind of gave him the vision for that while he was in medicine and living in Medicine Lodge. He had just retired from being the principal up there for a number of years. And then when he moved to Hazelton, this would have been early spring of 2011, moved into the old school up there, started bringing in foster kids. That was probably, February of 2011. And I met him in April of 2011, and we kind of got hooked up pretty hard. And then in January of 2012, I started taking every Friday off of work, and I'd be up there helping him build the boys ranch Friday through Sunday, and then working in the oil field Monday through Thursday. And then this November of 2019 is when I quit my job full time to go out there and be a house parent with my wife and kids.
So those that aren't familiar with the boys ranch, I've always tried to explain to people that it's an alternative to foster care. It's not through the state foster care system or anything like that. Can you kind of explain to the people that's not from around here how this works?
Sure. So the fancy term that we are is a private placement residential facility. And pretty much what that means is, we worked with foster care for a number of years, working with the state, and actually kind of had plans to just grow into a large fostering group home. And really frankly, just kind of hit some limitations that we didn't want to be battling. And a lot of that was we didn't have say over, how long the kids were going to be there. We didn't always have a really good understanding of the backgrounds of the kids. If the state felt like they were doing well and needed to leave, then they just got the decision to do that. And sometimes going back into homes that the kids had no business going back to. And, but then also we really wanted to work with the families. We wanted to be able to reach into mom and dad's home and share the same hope and healing that their kids are understanding, and be able to help foster that relationship. And like I say, after starting to get a little bit heavier working into foster care, we just knew that wasn't a direction that we would be able to go. So we're like, well, I wonder if there's a opportunity for us to work with kids outside of foster care. And I had no idea how many families are in desperate need trying to find help for their kids, and there's just nowhere. So that was in maybe 2015 when we made that commitment to start moving out of working with state kids and start working private. So we get no kids from the state. We get no funding from the state or feds, and we're 100% private supported. And we work and it broadens to the kids that we can work with, because now instead of just working with kids in Kansas, I've got kids out of Well, right now I got kids out of Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina. I've had kids out of New York, and then of course kids here locally as well. But just it really broadens the range of kids that we can work with, and we get to have a say in how long our kids are out there. So our kids stay no longer than a year and a half out in our program, but we have the capabilities if they're not doing well, or if they're growing well but they want to grow deeper, or sometimes it's just home is not a good place for them to be. And so in that, we're like, hey, we can extend that out to 2 years, to 3 years, 4 years. We've had kids that come in at 12 years old and stay all the way up through graduating high school, becoming an adult, and then they even stay and work for me past that. So
Yeah. And you guys also bring the different dynamic that you work with the family
yeah.
where they came from as well. Cause I always thought it was a neat concept that why are you going to take this kid, mold him into a young man just to send him back to an environment that's never changed, where you guys have taken the approach that we're going to work with the family as well to try to provide that unit
Mhm.
if they choose to go home.
Yeah. Well, and this shouldn't be rocket science. This is just pretty common sense. And now, and I'll tell you what really opened my eyes to that is when I was interviewing this one kid. So all of our kids that come in, they're all voluntarily there. We're not a lockup facility. We're not a place that just drop your kid off, don't tell them where you're going, and slam on the gas and get out of here before he runs out. We don't do that. We're very open. It's hard to build a relationship with a kid when you start out with a deception, and
Mhm.
so when I was interviewing this kid and his parents, and actually I had the privilege to talk to grandparents, the first question I start asking parents is, talk to me how you were raised. Talk to me about your childlike life growing up. And so many times the issues that the kids are having, well, the parents had them first. And in this situation, I was actually talking with a grandma, and I said, well, tell me your story. She goes, well, I guess I'll start out when I was 14, pregnant in a girl's home. And that's grandmother. So, I mean, right now, I don't know what her parents' life was like, and she didn't know a whole lot either. It's like, okay, we're dealing with a 4 generational struggle of no new tools coming in to equip these families. Well, instead of sitting there saying, hey, let's just work with this young man and build his toolbox, why wouldn't we want to reach into this family and try to help build their toolbox so they can experience some freedom and healing and say, wow, this is what this feels like? It makes sense. This is common
Yeah.
understanding, but it's also a snot ton of work. So that's really where we felt the calling to say, Lord, we really don't want to just work with this young man. We want to be able to reach into these families.
But that, I'm fixing to say something that we've had conversations about, just wasn't being recorded. But like the example that you gave, you don't know if you don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know any different, and now they've got a situation with what do we do? Well, the problem could have been remedied 4 generations ago.
Yeah.
But so you guys, you're a private company, you stand on your own. Is there any oversight at all from the state? Do you have like inspectors or regulators that come around to make sure it's the facility's compliant or
Yeah.
curriculum's compliant or anything like that?
So on the housing side, yes, we still have a license through DCF, and they come out. They come out on an annual basis to, make sure that the property's safe, and they, make sure that we're getting the kids to all the appointments they need to, and are they all, vision and dental and all that kind of stuff. So, and they do that on an annual basis. We actually just had it last week, and praise the Lord, no violations. God is good. And we have wonderful people that work on paperwork, and I am not that person. So if I was doing the paperwork, I'd probably be in jail. But no, and our whole thing, and this is what I told we've got a wonderful lady that works with DCF that comes down. She's been with us for years, and I told her when I first met her, and the same with our fire marshal that comes down, I said, I always want when you see Freedom Gates Boys Ranch on your roster for the day for you to smile, say today's going to be an easy day because these people take care of business. And praise the Lord, we've been able to do that. So we've got great relationship with our state people. We actually get a lot of referrals in from state agencies that are like, hey, this family, they need help. They don't qualify for what we offer, but we also know a program that we have knowledge of, and we get references from our state contacts pretty regular.
We kind of glossed over it. I need to go back to it. Something that you mentioned is the length of stay with these boys. And just to clarify, it's a boys ranch. You're not taking in females. It's strictly boys. That's why it's
Correct.
the boys ranch, just in case nobody figured that out.
Right.
But that's, I think from an outsider's perspective, one of the things I feel like that you've always set these kids up for success is they're not being turned, they're not coming for a month, then going to another home,
Right.
then going to another home. Because we've all seen the stories out there. Doesn't take much to just pull up to the internet and you could find a case where somebody was passed around through 10 to 20 families over a few years period of time. And I've always thought what you guys do with your, those kids are coming in, probably going to be there minimum year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
You're building some consistency. And it's going to be from a voice that they're going to learn to recognize and respect versus the next new voice, the next new voice, the next new
Right.
voice.
No, I think that's so powerful what you're saying there, because I was just talking with a family about this the other day. Most of our kids have been through pretty hard backgrounds, a lot of abuse, a lot of neglect, and to be frank, a lot of times we're not even working with biological families. We're working with parents that have adopted a child, whether that's from another family member through foster care, and so we, I mean, that's probably half of our families that we're working with are blended families, or step families, and biological dad or biological mom was physically or emotionally abusive or boisterous. So we're dealing with a lot of trauma in the background, and one of the biggest triggers of trauma of any kind is unpredictability,
Yeah.
and that just drives in fear and anxiety. I don't know what tomorrow brings, and which even as adults sometimes I can be sitting there saying, if I don't know what the plan is, my I get a little bit heightened, and my anxiety creeps up a bit. But just adding tenfold to that when you've already experienced trauma and abuse. And so the biggest thing that we can put in, and this is what I tell the boys when they first get there, I said, hey, you've got one job over the next 3 months. Just learn the routine. The routine is pretty much the same every day. There's always some variance. There's always some, life happens things, but just learn to become really safe. And I know exactly what time I'm supposed to wake up. I know exactly what time breakfast is and lunch is. I'm going to get fed every day. I'm not going to have to worry. And after about, and it takes a period of time, after about 3 months, we start watching that anxiety and that fear of tomorrow start to diminish. And then we're like, now we can start working on some of the deeper issues, because your brain isn't in constant survival mode saying, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, so I got to be ready for it.
Yep.
And that doesn't happen quickly. That takes a long period of time to start building that amount of trust.
Yep. Yeah. And and I think one of the unique things, I say unique, um, one of the things I've noticed that you guys bring to the table that some other places don't is the quality of life there, but you set it up like it's a family environment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a dormitory, quote unquote, style where you're going to be over here, you're going to be over there. I mean, you guys have meals together. You've got a school out there now.
Mm-hmm.
They work, whether it's with cattle, mowing lawns, all that. Can you kind of walk us through? Because that didn't happen overnight. I know there was a time that you didn't have on campus um, education.
Mm-hmm.
Kids came to public school and stuff. Can you walk us through why did you make that move to having everything on campus, but then the importance of getting those kids involved, like with the mowing service or the ranch or whatever job you got going on out there?
Yeah. So, and I'll let you hit on the head when he's like, didn't happen overnight. There's a lot of trial and error. We knew, and this is really thanks to Dennis Blake. He really had Lord gave him a really clear vision for a lot of things on how to love kids. And the way I've always said it is, the system of mom, dad, husband, wife, children, that was designed pre-sin. That was designed before sin ever came into this world. It's a perfect design. God's like, hey, I set it up this way for a reason, because it works. And I can say this, I'd say over with all the many, many dozens of kids that we've worked with over the last 15 years, I can probably count on one hand how many active, involved dads. And I can go to a lot smaller percentage than that on that were actually biological dads.
Wow.
So it's like, okay, this family unit that kids thrive in has been just destroyed. And then we're like, hey, you're going to be a husband and a father someday. Go build something that you've never seen, or what you have seen has been a massive distortion. Good luck. And then, again, that's that whole, like, we're asking them to go build something, but we're not handing them the tools to do it. And so we really wanted to set ours up to where they could understand, you know, this is the way a family is, God designed it to work. And and I just wrote an article about this the other day on, it's like, I know every time that I get the kids up in the morning, I'm teaching them. If I walk in flipping on lights and slamming doors, and why can't you? Well, I'm teaching them, guys, hey, this is how you need to get your kids up one. Also, every time I walk across the kitchen to give my wife a hug and a kiss, I'm educating them. Hey, this is a good, right way to do this. Every time, like, we kind of have this understanding in that family is like, they're going to do what we're doing. And so we really want to make sure we're showing them well. And so, and then again, hopefully one day they can sit there and say, oh man, I'm a husband now. I have no idea how to do this. Maybe growing up in the home that I didn't see a very good example. Dad wasn't around or so on, but I can remember back, I spent a couple of years over here, and I can remember Michael or Brent, one of our other house dads we've had, or JW, one of our other house dads that we've had throughout the years. And I can remember this example, and I'm just going to do that because now they got a point of reference. So that was really powerful in our upbringing. It's like, this is a perfect design that we know works, and they've got to see it. They're going to do what we do, not do what we say. So that was really the design for our family dynamic. And I raised my biological kids right alongside them. My youngest was a year and a half old when we moved in to be house parents, and now he's 8. So that family dynamic of, again, predictability, and also this interaction between husband and wife in front of the boys, and then also, how I, encourage or discipline or all the stuff, like, they're going to do it the way that I'm doing it. So I better make sure I'm blasted doing it. Yeah. And I don't do it perfect. And which also gives me an opportunity to show them how to ask for forgiveness from their kids, how to apologize. I mean, have you ever had to go to your kids and apologize to them at all?
I think once.
You're much better than I am. Well, I got to do it daily. So.
You bring up a great point that we need to make that clear, that it's not always horseshoes and rainbows every day.
Right.
This is real life that these kids are experiencing. So I love that you just said, yeah, they get to see some good examples. They're going to see some examples that aren't so good at times. Yeah. I mean, you guys, let's call a spade a spade. You guys got some cattle out there. I've known some folks when they work cattle that you get to see a different side sometimes because things happen, or just livestock in general.
Yes, sir.
And so there's that opportunity.
You must have been watching us from time to time.
If you make a mistake, which, I always say everybody's going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
But that willingness to go correct it, ask for forgiveness, that's something a lot of people like those boys may have never seen ever. Yeah. And we're talking, some of these boys are coming, some of them might be 16, 17 years old and never seen somebody ask for forgiveness or see the humility that it takes, the humbleness to say, I was wrong with this. I want to make things right, and then able to go function.
Yeah.
Well,
and without a but behind it. I've seen that before. It's like, oh, I'm really sorry, but if you wouldn't have, well, all that did was just erase the whole I'm sorry. And one example I'll share, we do this thing at the ranch we call them fountains and drains. Be a fountain, not a drain. And that's kind of the whole thing. It's like, so with our words, guys, God gave us words to build others up, not tear others down, to be a fountain of life, not to be a drain. And so we kind of had a bad culture starting to go around. Everybody kind of just bad mouthing each other and making slick comments that might be funny, but might be stepping on somebody. It's like, guys, let's try to cut this out. And this is the thing. If you're a drain, then you get to go and tell 3 nice things to the person in front of the group, and then you knock out 15 push-ups. And that's kind of the thing. Well, Justin, I'm pretty quick with my mouth. And if there was one thing that my butt got worn out more for, it was my mouth than anything else all through my childhood. And my wife, in her love and grace, says, hey, Michael, that comment that you just made to so-and-so that everybody's chuckling at, was that being a fountain or a drain? I'm like, oh, shoot. Well, that's being a drain. And so, and then what do I say to the guys? Hey, guys, don't worry. When you're in authority and when you're in charge, you don't have to follow the same rules, and you can have a worse character because nobody can call you out for it. So I did. And again, those are those moments like, this is a teaching moment right here. Hey, guys, I apologize. That was wrong. And I did my three positives, and I knocked out my 15 push-ups a little bit slower than some of those guys. But it's that idea. It's like, okay, if what I'm teaching these boys is, hey, as soon as you're an authority, as soon as you're the dad, as soon as you're the husband, you're exempt from even just proper, good, right character. well, shoot, they're going to do what they see me do. They're not going to do what I tell them. And working cattle. Oh my, I tell every kid when it comes time for calving season, or when we're branding, or when we're preg checking, I say, guys, therapeutic house dad stayed at the house this morning. And so you might get some higher decibels than what I'm asking you to do right now, comparatively what you normally get. But it's like this last branding that we did this spring. I told them, I said, guys, cow's going to get through the gate. That's what cows do. Somebody's going to go to catch on the head gate, and we're teaching kids how to do it. I said, one's going to go through. It's just going to happen. I said, but what I'm hoping is that my character is more expensive than a stupid cow getting through a gate. Cows are stupid. That's what they do. They will do what they do. But we can do what we're supposed to do, which is not let that come at a cost of our character. I said, nobody's going to be perfect today, but we can try. And just in that, it's like this character that we're talking about doesn't just retain in the home. It goes everywhere, and also into education. So
yeah, I was reminded back when I used to rodeo. I mean, a couple of my traveling partners, for a period of time, we wore rubber bands.
yeah,
And we did that for a purpose, is we held each other accountable. If we weren't carrying a positive attitude or we made a negative comment, we'd snap it.
yeah.
And it didn't happen the first day, but eventually the rubber band broke, because we never 100% got over making a smart aleck comment or a negative comment.
Yeah.
Our positive comments increased, but inevitably, I mean, the rubber band was going to snap, and it did over time. But I will say, it was the whole 15 push-up deal.
Yeah.
It's going to make you better, but there's going to be a time that's probably going to happen again.
Yeah.
That's life. But
I bet you noticed
better
when you made the negative comments, because even without the rubber band, I bet even after it broke, it was like, oh shoot, I did that again. And that's the thing is, probably one of the things that was always the hardest to me is like, Lord, am I going to do something that I know, could be done better, and not even notice it? Like I made a comment, or I used language, or I treated somebody in such a way that was good and that was wrong and dishonoring, and it didn't even register it was wrong.
Yeah.
That's terrifying to me, to sit there and say, am I that calloused that I could do something like that and it just doesn't bother me? And so even with hey, I'm not perfect, and man, I need grace and mercy every day, but I want to notice when I'm out of line, so at least then I can correct it. And that's so much what we're doing with these guys, is just that re-education. Like, guys, if all that they've experienced is parenting out of fear and intimidation, if I'm bigger than you, then you should be scared of me and do what I say. And that's their parenting style, because that's how they were parented. Well, our whole job is, how can we re-educate you to say, hey, there's really good ways to do this, that you can get a better result and keep the relationship.
Yeah. I'm reminded of an old rodeo guy that trained some of the best calf roping horses you've ever seen. And the old story was, most of those horses worked for him like that straight out of fear.
Yeah.
It wasn't because he taught them to be fearful of him. And so they worked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now you see these guys they get a horse to respond because of the way they've prepared it.
Mm-hmm.
Through repetition and everything, and they've convinced the horse it's their idea, instead of being, I better do this or I'm going to get beaten or whatever.
Yeah.
But looking at the campus now, how that thing has grown tremendously. You've got a full staff out there of educators. I'd say I don't want to say psychologist,
therapist. Yeah.
Therapist.
Yeah.
You got ranch hands or ranch managers and stuff. Kind of share a little bit about your staff, everything that they bring to the table that plays into the youth.
Everybody's there for the money. I joke with our team about this all the time. I was like, could anybody go somewhere else and make a better living? And we all laughingly raise our hands. It's like, anybody want to go? And everybody's like, no, this place is amazing. So we've got, of course, Mary, she's been with me. She runs our office, and she takes care of all of our secretarial work and our making sure we're, within compliance on our licensing, and handles the budgets and the financials and all of that. And she's been with me for almost 12 years now. Cody, he's our ranch foreman out there, and our wrangler, and he teaches equine and horsemanship to the boys. I mean, we've got, we started out with a donated heifer, a few straggling goats, and some horses that somebody was like, do y'all need some free horses? And I don't recommend taking everybody up on that offer for a free horse, but that's kind of how we started on that. And now by the grace of the Lord and the generosity of people, we've got, 13 or 12 horses right now, and all, really, really nice stock that all the boys can ride. And then we teach them the horsemanship geared towards ranching. And then we've got 17 cows calving out this fall. And so, God's just blessed, and it's grown, and Cody manages all of that and then teaches the boys how to do all that working. And so, so we've got, some 2-year-old and 3-year-old horses that some of our more advanced guys are helping out with the training on, all the way to, we've got kids that never sat on a horse before a couple of months ago. And their whole thing is, how do I sit on, not fall off, and hope that I can get the horse's movement going forward? So, and so in order to keep animals that can all do all of those aspects, he works really hard trying to make sure everything's trained up where it needs to be. And again, teaches the boys. And he also takes care of some of the boys when me and my wife go on our days off. So me and my wife are the full-time house parents. And then, of course, I'm the director. We've also got our our school teacher out there, Mr. T is what we call him. His name's Matthew. And he's just a wonderful guy. He's been with me for about 3 years, and he handles all of the day-to-day education. So, and I'll touch on education here in a minute to kind of explain that. But then we've got Ashley Unger. She's a local from around here, and she lives over in Burlington right now. And she's our family support worker. So she helps out so much and does a lot of the communication back with the families, and helps do some counsel with the families, and helps set up goals, not just for the kids while they're there, but again, where our goal is to try to help build relationships back with the families of these kids as well. And, of course, we work with a lot of families that are struggling. So she does a lot of that communication and contact work, and getting resources back to the family, so on and so forth. So, and then, a myriad of some volunteers that come in from time to time. So that's kind of our full-time team that we have out there right now.
Can we tell a funny story about Cody?
Just one? What you got?
Well, I always laugh about when he first arrived, and you guys had a pile of goats. Somebody gave you, talking about donating, somebody just said, here, take these. And he called and says, can you come out and kind of talk through this? And I'm like, yeah, you bet. So I go out there, and we're talking through, and the longer I'm talking, the more I'm realizing I don't think he really cares about goats. So I just ask him, I say, do you like the goats? No. Do the kids like the goats? No. Why you got them? Well, somebody gave them to us. I said, well, if nobody enjoys them, won't you get rid of them? Get something in here you like.
Yep.
We can do that. And I'm like, absolutely. I said, here's a phone number to a guy that probably trade you straight across for some calves.
He did.
And, he was on that like a pack of dogs on a 3-legged cat. Gave him an out.
Yeah, he was fairly happy with that. I think we all were, because and you're I know you're our local goat guru when it comes to those things, and I'll let you keep it. You do a fine job, and we got a pile of goats here a few months ago that I brought in to eat some of our pasture down that needed it. And we got rid of those just as fast as they were done with their job. After about the 4th time I got them in, I'm like, nope, I'm done.
Hey, if you're wanting to be a fountain and not a drain, I highly recommend don't raise goats. I'm just saying, you're going to be doing all the push-ups you want.
Hey, I'm going to tell you, those dumb goats, and I've never called them anything else but those dumb goats that we had here just this last year, we were getting them in about 2 to 3 times a day. There's nothing I could do to keep them in. And as me and the boys are sitting there running around, the boys are in, of course, a very chipper mood, getting the goats in for the 40th time. Yeah. I said, guys, why do you think they're getting out? I was like, well, they see all that green grass on the other side of the fence, or they smell the Milo blowing over from the co-op or something. I said, if they would just turn around and look to see what's in the middle of the pasture, that's the greenest grass we've got in the area. And you know what Scripture compares us to a lot? Really dumb sheep that always are looking for the hole, always trying to say it's got to be better somewhere else. We like to be right up next to the fence instead of turning around to see everything that the Lord's given us. And they're like, Michael, stop turning everything into a sermon. I'm like, well, it's either that or I'm going to start shooting some goats. So I've got to figure out some way that the Lord's trying to teach me some kind of a lesson in this.
I tell you, when we was in a drought a couple of years ago, we had a set that we couldn't keep in. The water gaps were dried up,
Yeah.
and uh, they had plenty of browse in front of them,
Mm-hmm.
but they chose to get out
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over. And one day I finally shut a gate that would keep them from going back to the pasture that they could get out through that water gap. But I opened two other gates that led to another area that was more secure, that they wasn't going to get out, and had equal browse or more.
Mm-hmm.
And for a period of hours, those goats laid by that gate that I'd closed and never recognized the two open ones that would have led to all the grazing, the
Wow.
browsing that they wanted. And I said, that's what we just
That's
talked.
what-
That's life.
Yeah, it is.
How many times do we keep going back, even though that door closed and we know we're going to get in trouble if we go through here?
Yep.
The end result's not going to be pleasant.
Yep.
Somebody's going to be cussing or whatever. You sorry goats,
Yep.
but there's an opportunity over here that's free.
Yeah.
And we're choosing just to sit next to that closed gate. And
so if I can get this frustrated at a bunch of dumb goats, I'm sitting there like, Lord, times 6 billion goats, times 6,000 years. Man, he's got patience with me. So
yes.
so many times like, Michael, just get back in the fence. Come on, you moron. So, but no. So yeah, we've, Cody, here this last time I brought goats in, I told Cody, he's like, Cody, I'm bringing in some more goats. And he did not smile.
Well, he didn't turn his 2 weeks notice either.
No, he did. He's a good man. He's been with me for about 6 years now already. So, that's been really good.
And I think that's one of the neat things is he wasn't a native or a local around here. He come from out of state,
Illinois. Yeah.
To work for you, and came at a time that the ranch looks a whole lot different than it did when he got here.
It was, yeah. We didn't have near the facilities. We had a full fenced in 20 acres. And I think I had just built the round pen. I think I just welded up the round pen in 20 acres. And I said, well, you think we can build an equine program out here? And he goes, well, all right, let's go. So, it looks a whole lot different now than it used to. So.
Yeah. That thing, I remember, when me and you first got to visiting and hanging out, I don't even think you had kids back at the school. They were at the Blue House. Was it
the Blue House? Yeah.
Yeah. And now you've expanded. You've call it the activity center. What's the
the campus center there?
Campus center. And then you've had a lot of construction remodel at the old Hazelton school to where a lot of it's done there now, I guess. Can you kind of talk through that process of growing?
Sure. So, the first house that we were licensed for private placement is what we call the Blue House. And, it's pretty obvious why we call it the Blue House. So,
it wasn't painted red.
No, it wasn't. Yeah. So we had the Blue House and the Brown House, and they were right beside each other, and I named them. So,
you've always been good with that.
I'm pretty descriptive. I'm very creative, but, so when me and my wife moved in to be the full-time house parents back in 2019, me and my wife and two kids lived in one bedroom. My kids on air mattresses on the floor. And then we graduated to bunk beds, and we were really excited for that. And then we had 5 other boys living in that house, and we had to eat in shifts because we didn't have enough table area for everybody. And we did that for 2 years. And honestly, it was really good. I mean, we had some neat kids come through there, and I was honestly pretty satisfied. I was like, Lord, let's just work with 5 kids for the rest of my life. That's pretty easy. And then we turned down about 70 kids in about 30 days, one fall. And
70.
70. Yeah. Wow. 70. It was just every day, 2 or 3 calls. Please, I need some help. And I've got no room. I need some. And I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And then we had leased out a third of the school before, off and on, when we did foster care. But then 2 individuals actually purchased that third of the school and gave it to us and said, go help out more kids. I was like, okay. And so needed quite a bit of work, needed a new roof on. I think we ended up spending about $200,000 on that place to get it up to snuff. But it's about 6,500 square feet. And me and my wife and 2 kids are still there now, but we've got our own 2-bedroom apartment within the house. And then we can have, we actually just upped our license from 8 to 10. So we can have 10 kids in that other side now. So, of course, that doubled the amount of kids that we could bring in. And then we'd finished we did most of that construction right during COVID, right at the first beginning of COVID. It was 2019, 2020. And then it was in 2020 that we really felt like the Lord wanted us to build our own school and campus center out there, and then we started construction on that 8,000 square foot building over there that we do our school in right now.
And just to go back, this funding isn't coming through a foster care program from the state or anything. You're raising the money through donations. I'm assuming you could probably access some grants at times, but you're relying strictly on faith as far as raising the funds to do all this.
Well, I'll say it this way: when we broke ground on our campus center, we had $1,000 in the bank, not for the campus center, but total.
Wow.
Yeah, like that way, and I'm like, this is stupid. Dave Ramsey be pitching a fit right now, breaking ground on a brand new 8,000 square foot project. But we knew the Lord wanted us to do it. I don't like to be presumptuous, but I'm like, Lord, it's making sense. We knew God wanted us to bring education onto campus, and so I'm like, okay, well, let's break ground. And we moved into that building 23 months later with no debt.
Wow.
I can't explain. I'm not that good of a fundraiser, Justin. I can't explain that except, okay, God, you're doing God things. And we do not. One other thing that we made a commitment on when we started is most private placement organizations, they really do all their operations off of charging tuition to their families. And I'm not talking a little bit. Most of them, especially if they offer education and therapy and things like that, most of them are charging between $4,000 and $6,000 a month.
Wow.
I had a mom call me up one time just in tears. She goes, Michael, my son got accepted to this other place, but it's $72,000 for 12 months of care. And I got to pay it all up front, and he can still get kicked out of the program, no refunds. And she said, when I asked them, how am I supposed to pay for this? Their first question is, well, do you have any property or more house you can mortgage or anything like that to take? And so you're sitting there talking to families that are in desperate need. I mean, they are in 100% trying to survive. Most of them would never be able to afford private. And the kids that really need help, like the families that are in generations of just this struggle and garbage, are going to be way on the low income side most of the time. And so we're sitting there as we're praying about, it's like, well, how are we going to pay for all this stuff? That, the most un-Christ-like thing you can do is say you don't get help because you don't have money. And so we made a commitment to never turn a family away because of funding. We ask our families to help out with what they can and to sacrificially make a commitment on a monthly basis. But right now, the last numbers I got from this year, from 2025, is that everything that our parents are giving to the ranch, all of them combined, covers about 6%. That's 94% for our community and God to really blow our minds. And we've never had to stop construction. We've never not paid a bill. We've never not made payroll. We had a couple board meetings last year to where the board would be like, well, Michael, how are we doing financial? I said, we've got 52 hours of operating costs left in the bank. And the response to that is, praise the Lord. He only promised daily bread. And then we just move on. It's like, what are we going to, I don't know what to do, but God's never let us down. And it's been more faith building for me than I'd ever thought, because I'm kind of a business guy. I really like to have a good plan. And, but I'm finding out stepping out on faith, a pretty solid place to be is, if you're in where the Lord wants you to be at.
Yeah. It's kind of like building a boat before there's water.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a matter, all God asks you to do is be obedient. And so if you do that, seems like it works out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's, even when we stepped into education, because, COVID kind of made a homeschooler out of everybody, which I always kind of chuckle at. So, but we saw, so many of our guys, education has always taken a backseat to their behavioral struggles. So even in the public school setting, they always really struggled because they've got a higher behavioral need than educational need. And so they may be really struggling in basic education, but because they're disruptive in the class and they've got to try to keep the symmetry of the class and that culture there, well, they get pulled out of the classroom, they get sent home, or they get ISS or OSS or even expelled sometimes. And it's because of behavior. And so, well, now they're just further behind in school. And now they go to a new school. They're in 8th grade. They haven't really been fully educated since they were in 3rd and 4th grade. But now it's like, oh, you're in 8th grade or maybe a freshman. And so we're going to give you eighth grade or freshman level work, but we're going to try to give you as many helps as necessary in order for this to happen. So I know you can't read, so we're going to have everything read to you. You can't do you can't do basic addition and subtraction, so we're going to hand you a calculator. And it's like we're really handicapping these kids for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And it's because, again, that behavioral struggle has always trumped their educational struggle. And so it's like, okay, we saw a lot of growth during COVID because we can deal with the behavioral struggles. If I have it's kind of a standing rule is like if you lose your temper in the classroom, which doesn't really happen that often anymore, it's like, guess what? I've got more fence line that has weeds growing up in it than you can imagine. And so I hand them an idiot stick and I say, you got a quarter mile of fence line to go weed whack out. And then right afterwards, you go right back to class. You're not out of school for the next 4 days. And that's just, and you get mad and you break the handle of the idiot stick. Not a problem. I weld on a metal one that adds about 7 pounds to it. And now, and it's just like, hey, there's not going to be something that you can do to get angry that's going to get you not being educated. So that's, yeah.
And that brings up a great point that I think we miss sometimes. The easy way out with disciplining kids in school is the suspension. But what are we teaching them? You act up, you get your way. The suspension might have been in their favor where they can go run wild or do whatever, depending on their home life.
Yep.
Whereas if you hold them accountable, make them do some responsible work, like what you was talking, some manual labor, then you're coming right back to the classroom.
Yeah.
You're not going to be out of it. You're going to come back, be with your peers. That's life.
Well, we understand this in every single aspect. So, I mean, just you spend a fair amount of time on horseback. Okay.
Yeah.
You had a horse pitch a fit. Would you just take a saddle off, cut him loose and kick him out in the pasture?
No.
I mean, you would sit there and be, the first thing is we're going to figure this out now, and we're going to keep pressure on until we get the behavior that's needed, and then we release. I mean, we understand that in every single aspect. And I use the word discipline very carefully because the root word for discipline is discipleship. Like it's a relationship between a student and a teacher. Like that's where discipline comes in from. Discipline, if I'm going to discipline somebody, I bring them in closer and we're going to educate. Now, it may not be pleasant sometimes, but discipline doesn't always mean you're uncomfortable or you're under, duress. Sometimes discipline is just re-education. If I'm going to punish somebody, it's when I shove you away. And when you're working with kids that have been through trauma and a lot of neglect and a lot of those things, so they're saying you did something bad, therefore I'm going to push you away and sever relationship, just reinforces all of that. I'm worthless. I can't do anything right. I've always said this to any of our guys, like if you're really struggling, I will tattoo you to my side. We had one kid that was really struggling. His nickname was Pocket. Why? Because he was in my pockets. Like you don't leave me. Like we're going to figure this out. And I don't care how many days, weeks, months, years it takes. I'm here for the rest of my life. So, and what that just taught that kid was like, hey, I'm not going to get rejected. I'm not going to get dismissed as not worth spending time with because of my behavior. This person cares more about me than my behavior. And that's the goal. And when we're working with the kids that have been through the struggles that we have, we're already working with them at a deficit. So we're trying to repay back a debt that, of their self-worth and self-confidence. And then we're trying to work forward. But I'm with you. I think, for our kids that have been in school and getting suspended and getting OSS or expelled, that's not only does it not help them educationally, but and granted, I'm working with a lot smaller group of kids. So, I mean, I know it'd be a lot different if I was working with a classroom of 50 kids, but to sit there and say your accountability for your behavioral struggle is a reward for you. Again, that'd be just like I'm riding a horse that pitches a fit and I say, oh, I can't believe you did that. I'm going to kick you out to the pasture so you learn your lesson.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good analogy there. And good protocols that you guys got in place. And I know we visited sometimes and, we just got done running water line, put in 4 new hydrants or welding on a project or stringing line for electrical project. These
Hmm.
kids are actively involved with everything you do on the ranch. And I
Yeah.
think that brings a whole nother level of value because that's something that we don't see as much as we used to. I think some of it's starting to come back in the public school system, that you're getting some real world experience.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think Mark Twain said it best. I'm pretty sure. I hope I'm not jacking up who says. I think it's Mark Twain says, "When you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll always be a failure."
Yes.
And I I don't have one kid that I've ever worked with that their place of the highest success is sitting in the classroom. That wasn't mine. I mean, I was homeschooled, which is probably really good because I'd have probably ended up, really being in trouble a lot because, our guys are coming as like, hey, we're going to go and do our classwork. But like I've got one kid, love him to death, been with me for a long time. He's never had a happy day in the classroom. But if I go kick him out to that arena, he helped me break all our colts. He helps me train a lot of horses. And he not only is good at it, he's good at teaching that. Like his whole thing that he says, "Hey, Michael, we got some of these new kids in. Can I teach them how to ride?" And it's where he
Yep.
flourishes. Well, shoot, I want to get him into that as much as I can and say, hey, yes, we need to do the classroom. Yes, you still have to do this work. But how do we get our guys involved in things to where they're using their hands, they're learning some skills, and they're finding areas of that they can be successful? Because most of our guys, again, have spent all of their life being in trouble. All of my life, all their life, like I'm always the kid in the principal's office. I'm always the kid in trouble. So that's my identity, and I don't get to be in an area to where I'm really successful. And so I had one kid where he was helping me rewire a house, and he's sitting there wiring, and he's a real tall kid, so he's up there wiring in the lights and putting in ceiling fans. Says, "Man, Michael, this is fun. I wish there was a job that could do this." And I just dropped to it. I was like, "You understand that there's a school that you can go to 28 miles from here at the Votech up in Alva, and they will teach you everything about electrical. You can get certified, and this can be what you do every day. And by the way, make a darn good living at it." Really? I'm like, yes. And he loves it and he enjoys it. So he's like, man, I think this is a direction that I want to go, and I can feed my family on it. And it's something that I enjoy, and it's something I'm good at. And that's what we're like, Lord, how can we get these kids tied into a passion that they have and for what they do out there at the ranch? And this is something that I kind of started really getting in my mind about it 2 years ago, is if I'm a kid that's struggling and I'm sent across the state or across many states to a bunch of people that I don't know, and the whole thing is you're the broke kid and we're the fixer and we're here to work on you and fix you. That's a crazy amount of pressure for a kid. But if I can sit there and say, hey, guess what? We're both broken. I'm broken, you're broken. We may be fixed in different areas. You may have strengths that I don't have, but we're both broken. Let's work on this together. You can help me, I can help you, but in the meantime, we got work to do because I need you. You're a part of this ranch and you've got assets that is valuable. Well, I just changed the whole dynamic of this kid's growth. And so when we're welding on projects, we're building houses, they now have ownership of this. This is their ranch just as much as it is mine. And it changes that whole, I'm not the kid that's always in trouble, the kid that got sent to a place because he's broken so that they can fix me. I got invited along on this journey of building this ranch for kids.
Yeah.
And I get to be a part. I mean, it just changes the whole mindset. And that's why we have so many kids that when it comes time to go home, they're like, can I stay longer? Maybe I want to work here after I'm done. I want to be a part of this place because I helped build this fence. I helped do this. I get to watch these other kids enjoying something that I built. It just changes everything. And that's something that we've really tried to put in, especially in the last few years.
Yeah. And so through the years, obviously you've had, you've been involved close to 14 years or about 14 years
Yeah.
now. So you've had kids come through the system that's went on and become adults now.
Yeah.
And, do you maintain that relationship? I mean, I guess it's a two-way street. Obviously they got to have a want to have the relationship also, but how does that look?
It's, we connect, everybody at the ranch connects with different kids normally and on different levels. So there's some kids that really connect with Cody hard. And so, they'll reach back out to him or he keeps connection. I try to keep as much connection as reasonable because, I always tell them, after they leave, it's like, guys, I'm not your house dad anymore, and I can't get you into trouble. So, it's always this, I guess it'd be kind of like the principal being friends with the students right after they graduate. It's kind of a weird dynamic. It kind of
Yeah.
shifts a little bit. But I start normally getting calls after they've been gone a couple of years is when they'll reach back out. Like and some kids I stayed really connected to, like Gage. Gage. He actually called me yesterday. Yesterday was his birthday. He's 20 and he's headed off to MEPS here shortly. He's joining the Navy.
Yeah.
And he calls me probably once a week. And I've got some other guys that another kid, one of my New York kids, he called me up the other day just to check in, and he's about 18, 19. I've got some kids, Big Jordan, if you remember Big Jordan.
Played basketball with him once.
He's a pretty good basketball player.
Yeah, so. I got my bluff in on him early. Me and JW did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember that. You guys were in boots, and I don't think he thought much of you. So you guys got him.
Yeah, jump on him early.
But like he called me, and his was just a really nice call. He didn't leave under the best circumstances, and I didn't hear from about 4 years. I didn't really know where he was at, and his whole call was like, Michael, I'm a dad now, and I've got a little girl, and I just want you to know how much he says, I know I didn't appreciate what I had there while I did, but I sure learned a lot. And those kind of calls, golly, I wish I could record them, because they're really encouraging for us to say, hey, there is some connection there. So we do keep a lot of connection. A lot of the kids come back down to the ranch, as adults, just to come and say hi and encourage some of the other boys there. So like I say, it's, kind of depending on their location, but we try to keep actually quite a bit of connection.
You had a group of them there, that group that Gage was with.
Mm-hmm.
There was 3 of them that we worked with through the 4-H side.
Yep.
With judging teams and stuff. And you talk about fun. I always told people, I said, I had a great experience with that group. That was the right group at the right time, because that's not everybody's cup of tea. We've had more kids than that have gave it a shot and said, it's not for me. But we got them involved in some judging programs, whether it's crops judging or livestock judging. Looked at meats judging just a little bit. But that little group, we took them to a handful of contests and stuff, and everybody had nicknames.
Yeah.
We had we had Grandpa, and the thing that I appreciated most, and I think I've shared it with you, is just they were a pleasure to be around when we traveled.
Yeah.
I had to sign up as a volunteer and go through your stuff in order to make that happen. But, it wasn't like we just traveled down to Messon Lodge.
You guys did some lines together, some roads together. So.
Yeah. We've went as far as Colby, Emporia, different places. Yeah. And they were I never felt uncomfortable one time of saying, we're going to go in this restaurant. Don't act up. I never had to say that.
Yeah.
They were always well-mannered. They would even ask, is it okay if I order this? And I'm like, yeah, order what you want. There's a menu. You pick out what you want to eat. All I ask is that you eat it.
Yeah.
Don't waste it. And had some overnight travels. And I told people, I said, that group, I don't know if it's every group, but that group that was running with me there for a while, if you gave them some positive affirmation or walked them through stuff like, this is how you identify this plant. We can tell right away if it's a broadleaf or a grass. So we're going to whittle it down to the options of this over here. We've eliminated all these other species or whatever. If you just took the time and you had to take time, it wasn't like they came with a bunch of experience.
Yeah.
They gave the effort.
Yeah.
We went up,
they did pretty well too.
That group was my senior team, and we smoked them at that Southeast area contest.
Yeah.
And smoked them as in like nobody was even close to us.
Yeah.
But that, that goes back to kind of like what you're talking about, if you're wiring up a ceiling fan, you didn't just tell that kid, climb up there and figure it out. You walked them through the process, and then they developed, hey, this is all right, and we tried to share that with those boys that this is stuff, especially on the identification of the crops judging. You'll use this the rest of your life. Unless you live in a location where there is zero vegetation, you can use this the rest of your life, and just had good times, Gage, I've stayed in contact with him, and what a character.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody that doesn't remember Gage, just because that personality, I was just talking to somebody last week and they said, Gage, he worked at the grocery store
Grocery
for a
store,
while. And I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, he did. And he goes, yeah, I'll never forget it. You know, when he got his Mustang, you
Yeah.
know, and he was, the only knock I had on Gage was we was coming back from that judging contest at Colby.
Yeah.
And there was a basketball game on the radio. And it got to about a minute left in the game. And I said, listen, you're going to have to take a break from talking. Well, I want to hear the last 60 seconds of this game. Then you can go on with all the stories you want after that.
Yeah.
But you wasn't going to have to stop and get a cup of coffee or anything to stay awake.
He'd keep you awake the
You was
whole
gonna be awake.
drive.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, and it's, you know, one thing, and this was something that we've really, and, you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, culture of different places. And that's always been things like, you know, what's our desire for the culture that we have out there at the ranch? And so this is a question I ask some new kids pretty often, you know, when they first come in. Pretty much every kid I've had this conversation with. I said, if I go to your neighborhood or your school and I say, hey, I'm friends with you, and I say your name, what does your last name mean in your school and your community? That's a really loaded question, because for a lot of the kids, it's that place the cops are at all the time. That kid that gets expelled out of school, that, you know, this is, or, you know, if they've been adopted through, it's like, well, nobody would know me. I'm just nameless. I have no identity whatsoever. And I've thought about this a lot over my life. There was a lot of dumb stuff that I didn't do, not because it was anything special, but because my last name in this community means something. I don't want to dishonor that. My grandparents, you know, are from Barber County. My great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. Like, I don't want to mess with that. I don't want to be the Simpson that knocks that down. And if I didn't have that, automatic, like, hey, you have a name to live up to, man, I don't know who I would be. I mean, that was just kind of like a nice check, you know, for my life. And so I talked to these guys a lot. I was like, guys, I'm going to tell you, in this community, if you say you're from Freedom Gates, that's a positive thing. Like that I don't talk, you know, because of the guys like you're talking, like Gage, or like some of these other guys that have been a part of the community and have said, hey, that's a good place. Or even what you're saying is like, we go crops judging. They're not the guys that are causing problems. They're not the guys that are running their mouth or being disrespectful. It's like, guys, that is who we are here. And that was built not by you guys, but by the generations before. Don't sit there and take that name and run it down for the next 5 generations. Yeah. And automatically they're like, we've got something to live up to. I tell them this. I said, guys, everywhere you go, you take your name with you, you take the name of Jesus, and you take the name of this ranch with you. You don't want to dishonor any of those. And a lot of our guys, they wear our brands on their shirt. They got a belt buckle with our brand. And I'm like, guys, know when you're wearing that, you need to understand that means you're held to a level of standard and accountability, because people aren't going to say, you know, oh, Gage or Dylan or any of these. They're not going to know you have a name. It's like that kid from Freedom Gates. That can either be a really awesome thing, yep, or that can really be. And so automatically they have this, hey, I have an expectation to live up to, which boys really need that. And that's why I think it's kind of helped create that culture. We went on a mission trip here to South Dakota. It was a lot of fun. We got a call from a mission team out there, like, hey, Michael, y'all looking for a mission trip? I was like, well, hey, I always like to go do mission work. Said, well, we've got about a quarter mile or half a mile of barbed wire fence to build, and there's no youth groups that still know how to build barbed wire fence. And our boys all kind of
lucky day.
Well, I tell our boys, like, guys, we got invited to go on a mission group. They're like, oh, great. What do we do? And I was like, we're going to go build some fence. And they just go, oh, we do that all the time. But this is what I told them. I said, guys, I'm not telling them we're a boys ranch. They have no idea. All they know is you're with Freedom Gates. That can be anything. I said, how do you want them remembering you? And that's kind of the mission we went up there for. Is like, guys, we will be remembered as the hardest working, most dedicated, kindest, most respectful. And when we left, after we did that project, they lined us out for 4 days on this project. And by the end of the second day, we were done looking for more work. And they're like, well, we also need this done. We knocked it out. So we were all over the place. And when we left, the director came up to each one of our guys and was like, guys, you need to know something. And I'm telling you seriously, you have outworked every mission group we have ever had from the colleges.
Wow.
And these were all 13, 14, 15-year-old boys. Well, then the next year when we went up, we had some new kids, and those kids that had been there the previous year, they got in the face of the new kids like, you need to know something. We have a reputation here, and we're going to live up to it this year too. And it was just like, wow, this is great. Just that culture of this is our identity. So it's been really neat watching that grow over the years.
That reminds me, you know this, but the people listening to it don't. When we would haul those kids to judging contest, everybody had the same shirt.
Yep.
Actually, Jerry.may, where we're at, May Precision Ag, always sponsored matching shirts for everybody on our team. So when we walked in, we all looked the part.
Yep.
And I always gave my talk before we got out of the vehicle. On your shirt is Barber County 4-H, May Precision Ag, and we're not going to do nothing or anything that'll bring embarrassment to either one of them names, right? Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But I also did that because, people are people. We walk into a contest one time and got some of the boys from the boys ranch, got some of my own children on a team, some other local youth. Everybody looks the part. They come prepared, and I get a comment from a guy, well, look at you all fancy with matching shirts. What he didn't know was none of those kids come from the same environment.
Right.
But they looked equal to him.
Yeah.
And and they looked sharp, and I always appreciated that. And I got to tell you this story. I think you know this. Me and Jancy were talking about the other day, that contest at Emporia. Usually they had a whole lot more than just crops judging. So I'd always tell them, hey, if you want to go try something else, knock it out.
Yeah.
And her and Dylan, her and Logan went and tried horticulture.
Oh, okay.
50 questions, multiple choice, mind you, 50 multiple choice. And we had a good laugh. When they were finished, we got the results, and I said, do you know how hard it is, both of you, to miss 49 50 each of multiple choice?
They got their name right, and that's the only question they got.
and they laughed about like that. And what I always appreciated was that could have been a very embarrassing moment for somebody, but we found the positive in it. Yeah. And they were always willing to try.
Yeah.
I was telling a story the other day about Gage leaving the state contest, and he had some distractions that day. We'll leave that at that. And we had some distractions leading up to that.
Yeah.
We'd lost one of the team members through an unfortunate deal, and so we hodgepodged the team together. But that team still finished second in the state. With a new one thrown on it. That contest. Missed winning a state title by 5 points, and I think Gage ended up second or third overall individual. We're walking across the state fairgrounds back to the vehicle, and he didn't seem himself.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a dreary day. And I let him go for a little bit, and I said, you doing all right? And he looked over and he goes, yeah, Mr. Goodnow. Dang it, I wanted to win that contest. And I went, oh, I thought it was something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the circumstance.
Right.
I'm like, we can work with this.
Yeah.
I said, you did just fine.
Yeah.
That's a big contest with a whole lot more competition. And to finish, like I said, I'm embarrassed that I can't remember if it was second or third, but he had a goal of being that state champion.
Yeah.
And always appreciate that. I mean, those kids always gave a great effort, and really enjoyed them.
When they find something that's like, hey, I'm again, my identity is more than just that kid that's in trouble all the time. And I mean, I can't imagine just what that feels like. Sit there and say, nobody expects much out of me because I'm just always in trouble. And so when they start to get out of that, man, it's fun to watch. And then it's not even based on achievement. And that's something that I drive in really hard. It's like, guys said, your achievements will come and go. I mean, I've gone everywhere from, I know my first national competition, I came in second from the bottom in weightlifting. And then I've done that all the way from being, the strongest in 7 states around here. And I said, all that's going to come and go, like those things. And by the way, I said, that was 10 years ago. Nobody cares about those achievements right now. Like nobody's sitting there like, hey, that's a big deal. But who you are, when you can be praised and encouraged and be satisfied, like, hey, I know who I am. I know who I am in Christ. I know who I am. I know where my identity does not rest in judging state competitions or, with me in any career that I've done or athletics or any of this. My identity comes from, I'm made in the image of God and I'm redeemed by the blood of Jesus. Like everything else can shift around, but that doesn't change. And when you start to that makes that loss or that, hey, I 49 questions out of 50 I got wrong. Well, that doesn't take away who I am.
Yeah.
So I will tell you this: every single goal that each one of those guys had was, we just got to try to beat Justin's girls. Golly.
Good
And I don't
luck.
think they never did.
They
I
never
always said,
did.
guys, you get them, it's like, I don't think we ever will. Golly, those girls are sharp. They know everything.
Oh boy, we had that junior team was 3 local girls, the twins and Breck and Hiltner, and they were a buzzsaw. They rattled off, was it 4? It was either 3 or 4 state championships in a row. Let's see. It was 3 in a row.
Yeah.
And then we ran into what we usually do, kids get involved in a small community and everything. And so we couldn't keep that team all together. But yeah, they went on a run for 3 years. They weren't just state champions. Nobody beat them at a single contest.
Yeah.
And one year at the state contest, they went first, and then the other 2 tied for second. The other years, all 3 of them were in the top 4. They were never, any of them, out of the top 4 at any contest. A lot of contests, they were first, second, and third. But that, I always said, they were my greatest teaching tool, because we would make them, especially when the boys come along, didn't know nothing, we'd put them into groups and say, you're going to help teach as much as I am.
Right.
You've been there, done that. You know what it's like to compete. And, but it gave them boys something to shoot for. They realized, I told them, I said, we're not going on glorified field trips, boys. I said, 1, we're going to learn, but 2, we're going to compete. This is a competition.
Right.
And we got people that sponsor us and support us, and we owe it to them to give our best effort, give our best behavior. And it was just a pleasure working with them. Like I said, I've never had a thought of, I wonder if this could happen. I wonder if that, it was, we had them stay overnight sometimes and stuff. And just as long as we made sure we had chaperones involved, but well-behaved kids, gave a great effort. Just what a great time. In typical fashion with us visiting, we have went a while.
I was going to say, this is a 4-hour podcast, right?
So this is a normal conversation for me and you.
Right.
We got to set aside part of our day.
Right. Well, we started about a half hour before we turned the mics on. So.
We did. I want to just kind of touch on a couple things before we start wrapping this up. One, I know you guys have a fundraiser, but also if somebody ever wanted to give assistance of any in whatever fashion, talk through how we do that. And then we can put some of that in the podcast notes as well, where they can reach out.
So, so the best way to do it is through our website. It's at freedomgatesbr, as in boysranch.org. And there's ways of contact and support, whether that's through the mail or whether that's through just straight credit card or PayPal or any of that. We do try to keep a pretty active needs list, of, hey, these are some daily things that we run through. Feeding boys is a chore. And so, but I'm going to tell you that our community, and this is just a really big appreciation for the community that we have in here. Because, like 2 days ago, I just and I don't do it often, but I post out there on Facebook, like, hey, I'm needing 9 new dressers. We've got a hodgepodge of a lot of furniture, but boys are hard on furniture, and I've got new kids moving in. And in 40 minutes, I had 9 new dressers on their way. 40 minutes. I was just like,
awesome.
I was sitting there, I better update this before I end up with 60. And that's, here, I think last year I put out a post asking, like, hey, we got some boys need some winter boots, and we're in our boots all day, every day. I don't buy junk. I don't want to go and wrap. I ain't going to put something on the boys that I wouldn't put on myself. And so we go down to the boot store. We get some good, good boots, keep these kids' boys' feet safe around the horses and livestock and warm. And within 2 hours, we've still got funds for our boot fund right now from 2 years ago, because we had so much funding come in saying, hey, we'll make sure these kids are wrapped up good. So, so our Facebook page, we're also really active on, and, but those are the best ways to get in contact with us. Or, and I also do a lot of traveling and do a lot of, just stuff like this, go and visit with people. I speak at probably 25, 30 events a year, whether it's churches or small groups or pretty much anybody that'll listen. So just to share about, hey, this is what we do. This is what God does. This is some ways that we can actually practically be helpful to kids before they get to a boys ranch, some parental training and things like that as well. So,
And is the fundraiser in the summer, is that an annual thing?
yeah, well, I've called it annual. I think I've had to miss twice. I missed last year's of 2024 because we had a bunch of staff leave. But yeah, that's an annual. So normally it's the first Saturday after the 4th of July, unless the 4th is like on a Saturday, so or even a Friday. So so yeah, it'll be this July up in Medicine Lodge again at the Heritage Center. We do a big hamburger feed and auction, and that's been a really amazing deal. That's started out here in Kiowa, and I think we had about 40, 45 people show up, and it was a great event. And I think this last year we had 230 and raised close to $60,000. So so I mean, we got a neat community.
You bet. You bet. And just to clarify, if somebody wanted to give assistance, it doesn't have to be money. It could be, like you talked about, dresser drawer or something. I would encourage people to reach out to see where there's a need.
Yeah.
They could provide boots or jackets or
Oh yeah. Well, and I've got one
for the horses or cattle.
Exactly. Well, I've got one guy that his whole thing says, Michael, you don't ever go and buy a set of tires. He says, you call me. He says, it's a lot easier for me to supply tires than it is money. So you just let me know. So, I've got people that's what or the same thing with beef. We get a lot of beef donated both on the hoof and in the freezer and those types of things, because again, especially for our area, sometimes that's just a more economically feasible gift that means a tremendous amount on the backside. So yeah, just getting in contact again, whether through all my contact information's on the website and also through our Facebook page is both really good ways to get a hold of us. And we're not shy about saying, hey, these are kind of what we're needing right now.
Yep. So if you're listening to this, we're going to put all that contact information in the podcast notes. Last question. Okay. Because I got a job I got to get back to, and so do you. What keeps you going?
Oh, that's loaded. I'll try to summarize.
Well, let me, I'm going to talk just for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
14 years, and I'm going to call a spade, my friend. You're working with challenges every single day, not just an individual challenge, but sometimes, as you said, generational challenges that can have some wearability on a person's body, mentality, spirituality. But you're going stronger now than I've ever seen you go 14 years later, where some people look like after a period of time they want to slow down. You seem like you catch another gear. And so what is it that keeps you going?
Some things I think about quite a bit. There's a kid here when I was lifting weights at South Barber. I knew didn't have a good home. Everybody in the community knew he didn't have a good home. Pretty decent little athlete, nice kid, quiet. I always kind of had it on my mind. I was like, man, I just need to go give that kid some encouragement. But, just kind of never did. Just always one of those things. Like, you go by just, hey, I saw you at the game. Nice job. And I never did. Then I was unloading a load oil field pipe over at Dad's shop, and I get a call that kid took his own life over in Hartner. Most people around here probably know what I'm talking about. And I have no idea if I could have ever done anything that would have made a difference. But I kind of made a commitment with the Lord. It's like, God, I'm never going to have to ask myself that question again. I just, I had a great life. Like, my folks are great, raised all of us kids in good, safe Christian. I don't know what it's like to be hungry, obviously. Don't know what it's like to be scared to go home. Like, that was a safe place. Don't know what it's like to be worried I'm going to get kicked out. Like, I don't know what that's like. And I thought that was normal, and it's not, and it should be. And God gave a mission to the church, said, hey, go be me, go be Jesus. And I haven't done that all the time. I want to do that. I want to hear that. Well done. Hey, I gave you a job. You didn't shirk it. You didn't just say, God, thanks for being my savior, but I also want to make him my Lord. Like, just do what I'm asking. Don't ask questions. Just do it. And Isaiah chapter 40. Me and my wife say this to ourselves quite a bit because it is tiring, both physically, emotionally. It's hard on my family sometimes, really hard on my marriage sometimes, hard on my kids sometimes. But my wife, when we were in the blue house and it was really rough over there, she'd lean over me every once in a while and say, Michael, if God can make the children of Israel's shoes not wear out for 40 years, he'll either bring us help or he'll keep us together, but he ain't leaving. And that's kind of the drive. It's like we've got a mission, we've got a job. Until Jesus comes back, there should never be a time where we're growing rust. We're going to wear out first before we rust out. And that's kind of the commitment and it's not just me. My wife has completely. And that's just kind of the daily self-talk. It's like we got a job to do. Kids don't know that they're loved, and as long as that's out there, we got work to do. So.
Well, my friend, I've enjoyed the visit as always.
Yeah.
As we talked, this is just me and you. It's just getting recorded now.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. I know you guys are busy. I appreciate you sharing about you as well as the history of the Boys Ranch. And I would encourage anybody to look them up, learn a little bit more about it. What a great, great resource that you provide. And I'm assuming there's still some volunteer opportunities from time to time out there that they could reach out and learn how to be a volunteer.
Absolutely.
It's not as easy as just saying you want to be one. You kind of got to go through some steps, but it's darn sure worth it. And keep up the great work. It has been an absolute pleasure to watch that grow. And we're talking, Michael, in a relatively short amount of time. I mean, we talk like 14 years, but I'm talking there's some stuff in the last few years that.
Well, you and I've only been talking, regular with since 2018, maybe. So we're talking 7 years since you and I, and the big growth has happened in the last 5.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to see some very positive, encouraging stuff, some things that you didn't think was possible, I'd encourage you to get involved out there. Cause, I'm going to share one story because I think it needs to be told. You were looking to expand the cow herd, and, we're sitting there with a cattle producer that didn't know anything about the ranch.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of took him around, showed him what it was all about, talked about your vision and why you was wanting to do the cow herd. And I'll never forget, we were kind of sitting like this. That guy was sitting like to my left, you're across the desk like this. And he rocks back and he says, well, I doubt you could spend $2,000 a head on these cows I got. So why don't I just give them to you? And me and you got up off the floor and said, did you just say
what I think I say?
You're going to give them to them, and so I would say if you enjoy moments like that, which I don't know anybody that wouldn't enjoy a moment like that. I've got to experience them personally. And I want to tell you, thank you for letting me be a part of that, to where I've got to experience those things over and over and over. Get involved with the Boys Ranch, support it however you see fit. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a check. It can be a donation of anything. It can be a donation of your time and effort. And sometimes that's more valuable than any check that's ever written. But keep up the great work. I know who's guiding you, but you have to be willing to put boots on the ground. So I want to tell you specifically, thank you for what you're doing, and keep up the good work. And hats off to the staff out there. And I'm going to wrap this up before we get into too much more stuff. But
sounds good.
Thank you again.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Justin.
You bet.